Again with the applause, buddy. Again with the applause.
Welcome back to Barstool Breakdowns with your hosts. I am Matt.
I am Andy.
Andy, good to see you, buddy.
You too, man. Little cheers. Start our cheers off. Hey, no whiskey this week.
Yeah, what's going on here? I don't have any kind of whiskey or gin or beer or...
Well, we're having water.
We are having water.
Yeah. So we decided to, with the help of a friend, decided that we were going to try intermittent fasting. And the first part of that is a kickoff for a 3-day fast, which I've got about 6 hours left of mine. How many do you have left?
I have 2+ days. And let me tell you, it's one thing being around you with a full stomach and a glass of whiskey. It's a whole different thing, folks, being around this weirdo on an empty stomach and no booze. But so far, so good.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long we can go producing episodes without alcohol being involved. We may not be as funny today, Matt.
I promise the audience out there, TV land, I will still be funny, and you'll still be funny too.
I'll still be me.
I know you'll still be me. That's right. Well, cheers to you. Cheers to episode number 4. This is great stuff, and guys, what a great week it's been, and thank you all so much for the followership. We've had a lot of people hop on the show.
It's been. So we were talking before the show started. I think we check several times a day just to see how things are going, checking our analytics and our stats and seeing how the numbers are growing. And quite honestly, for this being going into, I think it's our fourth episode, but like our third week of doing this, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. And we've got one, you were just telling me about one of my Manscaped video. What'd you say? What's it up to now?
We're just shy of 10,000 views on the Manscaping video that we put out there.
Oh my goodness. I never thought that me manscaping my junk would have that much of an impact on people's lives.
Well, it was very creative, and I think it was very realistic too, because I can just picture in my mind. Well, I try not to picture my mind, but you get where I'm going. Please
don't do that. Please don't picture me in your mind.
But guys, thanks again for following us. You know, as always, our social tags are going to be Barstool Breakdowns. We're on TikTok, as many of you know. We're on Twitter as Barstool Guys, but everything else is Barstool Breakdowns. On TikTok, on Instagram. We are obviously on Spotify podcasts as well as Apple Podcasts, and all of those are at Barstool Breakdowns. And most importantly, please do find us on YouTube. You can find the video version of this podcast available 24 hours a day, and all of our former podcasts. So our topic today, we've had a lot of great topics over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we appreciate all the feedback from our audience out here about future topic ideas, and please do send them in. But our topic this week, Andy, you want to tee us up on that one?
Dates gone wild.
Ooh.
Good stories, horror stories.
Did you say horror?
Not horror.
Well,
horror stories.
When it comes to you,
easy.
There's a question mark there. Let's be honest, folks.
Feelings. I have feelings.
Do you?
No.
Well, they're not in your chest. But anyway, we digress. So yes, today we'll be talking about and sharing just a few stories of some dating woes, right? Kind of a play off of our first episode about dating apps, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But before we do, Andy, you were sharing some news with me earlier. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that.
Pat Sajak is finally retiring from the Wheel of Fortune.
No, how many years has he been doing that?
127.
Well, the guy looks great. Boy, thank you, Botox, right? And Vanna, she's got to keep him young.
Wow. So we were talking about that too, because you said you were 6 when I was in high school, which I guess is probably just about right.
Very accurate.
You didn't realize that Vanna White had done a Playboy spread.
I know now.
Well, let's just say if you have an opportunity to check that out, she did not listen to our episode last week on scaping.
Oh, is that right? Fermez les bouches?
Whatever you said is C or we.
Well, yeah.
I have to get the right language.
Threw you off on that one, huh? Okay. All right. Well, hey, that's good to know.
And there was some talk, there was some push, some people that were actually pushing for her to become the new host to replace Pat.
So that begs the question, who then is going to spin the numbers, the letters, excuse me?
Oh, I don't know if she's retiring or not.
God, I hope not. Because I could watch that show on mute.
Yeah, she's like 87.
She's not 87 years old as she is. I've got a,
I'm
that
not.
goes back to the fetish conversation we had a couple weeks ago.
You have a Vanna White fetish?
I can.
Okay. No, she looks amazing. I'm sure there's some Botox involved there as well.
Oh, and 2x4s and duct tape too, I'd have to imagine.
And speaking of someone who probably uses Botox, Pat Sajak's replacement, the man of a million jobs in Hollywood, Ryan Seacrest.
My goodness, that boy, he works constantly. Like, I'm tired just saying his name, thinking about how much shit that guy is involved with.
Yeah, so I think he just recently, he used to be on with Kelly Ripa in the mornings. Kelly and Ryan Live, which her husband is doing that with her now. But Ryan Seacrest, but it doesn't happen until 2024. So Pat must be finishing out the year.
I'll be curious to see how that transition goes. I mean, that's a dynasty. It has to be 40 years plus.
Oh, absolutely.
I would have to think. I have no idea. I mean, growing up watching that on whatever night of the week it was, that's a great show.
Usually came on right after the news, didn't it? Like at 6:30?
I don't know. I was in diapers back then.
But it was on
watching it.
It was on every night. It's still on, dude. So
It's still on.
You can't use that excuse.
So Pat Sajak is retiring. Vanna is a question mark. I mean, she may be single. Speaking of our topic of the day, but you're definitely more in her age range than she is in mine.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm good with that.
Absolutely.
There's not, and I know we're going to get into the subject, but thinking of game shows that are actually still actively on that have stood the test of time, Family Feud and Price is Right are about the only ones that I can think of that have really stood the test of time. Wheel of Fortune's the only one that's had the same host for that many years. I mean, Bob Barker was around a long time, and now it's Drew Carey, I think. What?
Nowadays, after the whole Adam Sandler franchise of movies came out, in the 90s and obviously even to this day, anytime I think of The Price is Right and Bob Barker, I think of that goddamn movie with Adam Sandler where he's a Happy Madison.
Happy Gilmore.
The Price is Wrong, bitch.
Happy Gilmore.
yeah, Happy Gilmore.
The price is wrong, bitch. Unless you watch it on an edited version, like on he goes, the price is wrong, Bobby.
You want to hear a fun fact about Bob Barker that you will probably think I made up? If you are a prison inmate, now this may be old information, but if you're a prison inmate, the shoes they issue you are made by a company that Bob Barker owns.
So Bob's diversified.
Clearly.
Yeah, Bob's diversified.
Smart, old guy. Is he still alive? I have no idea.
I think he's passed.
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing with, I know we're really getting off subject.
Big time.
But going back to Family Feud, because, it was Richard Dawson, and then it was, I don't know, that the Jay Peterman from Seinfeld was on there for a while. Some little short white guy, I can't remember his name, he was on there for a while, and now Steve Harvey. But there's some kind of thing around the host on there, like of bad things happening to them. Yes. And
I can picture in my head right now that other host you're talking about. He was a portly gentleman, comedian.
Oh, no. Okay, that was Louis Anderson. There was another guy. Another guy that did it too. And not for very long. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's like a whole thing around them of like tragedy.
Bad karma.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we are getting off topic a little bit, but those are very interesting news articles you found.
Yeah. Well, just thought I'd share a little bit
but
of that.
Speaking of Vanna and her potential future availability, since she's not going to be employed much longer, we think, I wonder what it's like to date Vanna White. And speaking of dating, we've got some dating horror stories. And I'll say horror stories, right?
Thank you.
But, Andy and I, we've been best friends for 20 plus years. And we definitely have shared a lot of horror stories or dates gone wild. And we thought we'd share a few of those stories with you guys today. We've had a couple people chime in, message us and ask about some of our dating woes. And so we had a couple stories each that we're going to share today. So, Andy, we've talked a lot about first dates, and back to our episode here a couple weeks ago when we were talking about dating apps. That was actually our first episode. That was a lot of fun. We got a lot of good feedback on that one too. But one of the things we talked about was being your genuine self, right? If you're on these dating apps, you use your actual photos, you fill out the bio, be who you are, because at some point you may meet up with that certain someone.
Exactly.
And I know you've got a story of a certain someone plus that was a little bit of a surprise. And I think we'd all like to hear a little bit more about that.
It was definitely a plus. Clever. That was very clever.
I try to be smooth.
Yeah. So, yeah, but like he said, what we talked about on the dating apps episode, present who you are, please, because let me tell you, the very first date that I had met this gal, and we had a really good conversation for about a week or so, decided that we were going to meet one another. And
Pretty girl.
yeah, she was a pretty girl. Was excited to meet her. And so we make plans to meet. I go to the bar and I'm in the parking lot. I'm actually a few minutes early. She sends me a text that she's already there and she's inside. She's sitting at the bar. I'm like, okay, prompt. Someone's on time.
Gotta love that.
So I go inside, and she told me she's sitting at the bar. So I go inside, and this place has a big rectangular bar. When the bartenders are in the middle, the drafts are in the middle. So I go in, I go to the left, I walk all the way down that side of the bar, go around the backside, walk all the way down the other side of the bar back to where I started, and she's not here.
Yes, she was.
Yes, she was. So I sent her a text and I said, have you moved? Because I just went completely around the bar and I didn't see you. And she goes, yeah, I'm at the bar. I'm sitting on, she told me which side she was sitting on. I'm like, can you like raise your hand? She does. She's at the bar. And
Be nice.
okay, so first of all, I'm not a body shamer at all, but she needed 2 stools.
I knew you were going to say that.
And she was not who she presented herself to be.
Yeah.
And still an attractive woman, but I don't know, Matt. I don't know if I would have met her or not, but at the same time too, false advertising.
I'd say that's
I mean, just a little bit. I mean, definitely not. It was definitely not going anywhere. Number one, I was mad from the standpoint of I thought I had met this person that was who they said they were, portraying themselves to be who they were, and they weren't. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, number one, this is not going anywhere, even if you have the best personality in the world. Already lying to me before we've met one another. I mean,
that's fair.
It's a little bit of an issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so we moved away from the bar and sat down at a table right by the front door. And
Strategic.
I'm trying to figure out how in the hell I'm getting out of here. So, miraculously, my kids needed me, Matt.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And I had to go.
Is that right?
And again, I hadn't dated in, like close to 16, 17 years.
Okay. And this was your first experience?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised you
I
had another date.
had to get the hell out of there. So I get out of there, tell her I got to go. Kids having an issue. Walk her to her car because I'm a gentleman like that. Shut the door to her car. And I'm walking back to my car. I'm probably like 30, 40 cars away down the parking lot. And you know how when you get that feeling that somebody is walking behind you?
You probably get that feeling a lot.
Well, I don't turn around, but I've got this feeling that somebody is walking behind me. And I get to my car and I unlock it and I turn around and she's within 3 or 4 cars of me heading directly at me. And I turn around and says, everything okay? Is there a problem with the car? Or, what's going on? She goes, well, we didn't really have a proper goodbye. And I'm like, okay, so this isn't happening. And actually got kind of a befuddled look on her face. I'm like, look, I'm sorry. I said, I'm new to this. And I just told her, Matt, I just flat out told her what the issue was. She had come back, I'm assuming, wanting a goodbye kiss. And I was letting it be known that there was nothing happening beyond the spot. She wasn't who I thought she was, and I was not a happy camper about it. And needless to say, she and I did not talk again after that. True to what we said on episode week number 1, be yourself. Show your true self. Be who you are. Because eventually you're going to meet somebody.
Absolutely are. And it's not about body size or whatever. I mean, I've been on dates with larger women in the past, and we're not small guys. We're working on that now with our fast, right? Yeah. It's not about that. I think for me, I've got a similar-ish story here in a second. My stories, they are long, folks. But anyways, it's about being who you are, being upfront, being honest, because we're expected to do that too, and we should. So love who you are, and there's somebody out there who's just going to love the shit out of it, So, and if you got a lot more to love, great. Just enjoy who you are, right?
So you've got a pretty entertaining story.
Andy, all my stories,
well,
have a lot of color to them.
When we were going through that, I haven't really had a ton of bad dates.
I haven't.
Dates gone wild. You have some pretty good ones, though. But I guess you kind of have to consider the source sometimes.
Oh my God, shut up.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too. I love you too. So I also haven't had a lot of bad dates. I've had a couple that were wild, and I am going to share one of them now.
I'd love to hear this.
So along the same lines of being your true self, I get divorced from my second wife. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Thing number 2, you're going to have to do that too at some point. But anyway, so I get separated from my second wife. We're going through divorce, all that kind of fun stuff or whatever. And I'm sullen, kind of in a bad headspace. And another buddy of mine, not this jerk off, calls me up and goes, "Hey Matt, there's this girl that my wife works with at this doctor's office or something, right? You're going to love her. She's hot." And I'm like, time out. First of all, you don't know me. Why am I going to like her? Past the aesthetics, the optics, why am I going to like her? And that's a whole different conversation. So finally he goes, "Listen, she's excited to meet you."
Had she seen like profile pictures, or I'm assuming like your Facebook or?
Well, so at this point I stop him in his tracks and we're having phone conversation. I'm like, "Steve, hang on a second. She's excited to meet me. I don't even know who this person is. Have you already talked to her about me?" He says, "Well, no, my wife has. They work together." I'm like, "Okay. Well, now I feel a little bit of obligation, right? But I'm a nice guy. I self-proclaimed. So I'm like, fine. So I agree to go on a date with this girl. Now listen, if I like to treat a woman, I like to, show up. And so we go to a nice steak restaurant place. Okay. Now folks, back again from episode 1, I didn't FaceTime her first. Didn't talk to her on the phone first either. A couple of texts, that was about it. It was literally like the next day. We meet for dinner. Okay. So he does send me her picture. Now, I know I can speak for both myself and Andy here that as I have gotten older, my age radar has gotten not as accurate.
I'm horrible.
Yeah. So I just don't guess anymore.
No.
Because that could potentially, get you in a twist. So at any rate, and yes, this is foreshadowing, folks. So I agree to this date. We go to this place called Sullivan's near here. It's a really nice steak restaurant, expensive place, whatever. And so first I see her picture. My buddy sends me this picture, and I'm like, man, this gal looks young. Cute, real pretty, young. And I ask, well, how old is she? And at the time, I'm 39, I think, okay? Mm-hmm. Maybe kissing on 40. He says 28. That's a little young for me. Not that I really care about age necessarily. And it definitely is just this side of the old rule of thumb of half your age plus 7. Mm-hmm. If you haven't heard that, it's not true. But anyways, 28. I'm thinking that's awfully young. I agreed it anyways. I kind of felt obligated. So I show up at this restaurant. I'm there a couple minutes early. She starts walking up. Looks just like her picture. Real pretty girl, blonde, whatever, anything. Doesn't matter. She walks up, and my radar is just
ping, ping.
Oh, dude, probably pinging harder than that Titan submersible. Sorry, folks.
Still too soon.
I know, way too soon. So yeah, radar's pinging hard. But I'm thinking, hey, you know what? My age gauge is off. Whatever. Don't judge, right? So she shows up, handshake, nice to meet you, all that kind of crap. We go sit down. Several things occurred during this dinner, folks, and this dinner was short. And you're about to find out why. So we sit down, pull out the chair, blah, 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 blah. Waiter comes over, typical stuff. Here's your waters. Here's our specials for the night, yada, yada. My name's Clark or whatever. What would you like to drink? I order my typical old man drink, my gin and tonic, right? I love my gin and tonic. Goes over, he motions his attention to her. What would you like? She says, Sprite. Fine. I don't think anything of it. A lot of people don't drink, don't really care. And women totally understand if you don't drink on a first date. You got to keep your wits about you. Men, you probably should too, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not really thinking anything of it at all. Okay, fine, whatever. Hindsight. He takes off. I get a cocktail. She gets her Sprite in a sippy cup. So between the drinks hitting the table and the appetizer of whatever the hell it was, 10 minutes later, this...
Probably like macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually corn dogs on sticks with a Go-Gurt. So inside of, I'll call it 10 minutes, Andy, this young lady, emphasis on young, asked me how much money I make. That's a no-no, folks. If I will have my vasectomy reversed.
So she knew you had a vasectomy?
My buddy, not a buddy anymore, and his wife said that, yeah,
Hey,
apparently.
that's been snipped.
Exactly, right. And number 3, have you thought about having less time with your children? And I'm like, oh, I love my children. I love my kids. They're great kids. I love spending time with them. I would love to have more time with my children. No. Yeah, that was my look too. No. Have you thought about having your children less amount of time?
What?
Yeah, exactly. So,
No.
right. I go, wait a minute. First of all, I'm not one of those dads. You're not one of those dads. We show up. We're the dads you don't hear about. Like, we are actually in our children's lives. We support their growth and all that kind of fun stuff, the things you're supposed to be doing. Okay.
Right.
So we're not the other group of douchebags out there. We're the good guys, right? You don't hear about us, right? You don't know that we actually exist. She clearly didn't either. So I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Appetizer hits the table. I go, listen, we're starting this off on a bad foot. These are questions that we're not going to discuss on a first date, nor are they really appropriate. At some point they would be, but definitely not date number 1.
Sure.
And I go, hey, listen, let's hit the reset button. Let's talk about music. She had mentioned she loved music or whatever. I used to be in a band. I've been a singer for many, many years of my life, whatever. Let's talk about music. So we're talking about bands and all this kind of fun stuff. But my radar is super high at this point. I mean, it's deafening in my head. So I then ask her, well, let me ask you a question. If I were to mention the word Nirvana, what comes to mind? Now, Andy, at this point, I would accept answers like Smells Like Teen Spirit, Baby in a Pool Chasing a Dollar with its dick out, Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I'll take a Foo Fighters reference or a Rick roll at this point in the story.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Her response, I shit you not. Do you mean like the state of mind? And then my response, folks, was the following. I need to see your driver's license right now. Now, Andy, when I say this was a white girl, she turned see-through.
I would have loved to see this.
Oh, I would have too. The feeling of boiling diarrhea coming up in my body and fear that I'm sitting across from a minor is palpable. She starts apologizing, pulls out her driver's license. You want to take a guess how old she was?
If she was that nervous.
And her nervousness made me even more nervous.
So she didn't order alcohol.
She did not, which could have been anything.
Could have been. The whole Nirvana thing, maybe she's a country music fan.
Well, that would have been a tilt.
But to get that, yeah, I just got that one. Matt's not a country guy. But to get that scared and to turn that pale when you ask for a driver's license, was it a vertical? Was it a vertical or a horizontal driver's license? Because if they're under 21,
right.
It's
Thank
vertical.
Christ it was. No, well, this was a few years ago. I don't remember, but she
Okay.
was 20.